she will be talking about the topic mental health in young India. Dr. Aiswarya did her MD and DPM from CMC Vellore, Christian Medical College, one of the top medical colleges in India. She joined the Department of Psychiatry in CMC Vellore in 2012. Her areas of passion are family intervention, women's mental health, and psychological and psychosocial interventions. Uh, as most of you are aware, after attending our series of sessions before this, you might know that we had talked about a lot of topics in open Q&A session, one on the mind, one on sexuality. And today we're here to address something that's very crucial as to who we are in our collegiate society, in our families, as who we are, as part of what we are, and thinking every day. Suicide is something that has been a bane on our society for a very long time. And it's not easy to address. It's not easy to address that pain. But today we have with us a certified professional who is deeply engaged in understanding what we at CET have been dealing with for the past 2 years. She's taken her time and she's been so generous as to openly communicate and talk to us and understand what is the situation at college. And I wholeheartedly, and on behalf of 125 CET and everyone listening, we completely and wholeheartedly welcome you, ma'am, to our session, Embrace by 125 CET.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am,
Thank you.
I think we can start with the session. To those of you who are listening, we will be having a presentation by ma'am. Any doubts during the session, any questions you want to see addressed, you can either drop it privately in my chat or to Abdullah's chat. We will be the moderators of the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. Good evening to one and all. It's my proud privilege and I'm very happy to be speaking to some of the most promising professionals of our country. Let me extend my appreciation to the entire team for the efforts they have put in for spreading mental health awareness. So, as a mental health professional, there are two things that capture our attention when we talk about young adults. One is the magnitude of the problem. That is, it's starring the sheer number of people who approach us for help for the problems related to mental health and the mental health challenges faced by the youth in our country. The second, a very promising feature is that most of the young adults who approach us, they actually improve a lot on treatment and sometimes just by reaching out. So this is something that we see, say that, early interventions in youth are like the best buy for a psychiatrist. So let's look at some statistics. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So, as many of us know, India, which houses the world's highest population between the age 10 to 25 years, about 356 million, also boasts as having one of the highest number of suicides in the world. And this is especially true for teen, adolescent, and young suicides. So there's this National Mental Health Survey done in India, which has estimated the current prevalence of mental illnesses at 7.3. That is excluding tobacco use for the age 18 to 29. And when you're looking at substance use, the graph gets much higher. Suicide rates in India is one of the highest among the youth population. So the trajectory that we see over the last years has been really, really difficult to fathom. Two things that has been shown consistently. One, the suicide rates in our country is much higher for the educated population. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so as I was saying, the suicide rates in India is the highest among the youth population. And this is something that we something that we see differently from other countries is that the number of people who commit suicide is the population that is educated is much more than the uneducated population. So if you're looking at the statistics from 99 to 2018, you can see that the suicide rates have been steadily increasing. Can we go to the next line, please? Yeah, so we see that there is a 26% jump from the preceding 5-year period when you're looking at the suicide rate. Next line, please. So when I was looking at some figures for engineering students, I came across this figure that between 2014 and no, the 2014 and 2019, there has been about 27 students across the IITs who's committed suicide. And this is not just restricted to engineering students. Even after announcing the results, state intermediate results last year, Telangana saw about 19 students committing suicide in a week. The next thing that we have to deal with when we're looking at youth is the substance use problem. So substance use, as we all know, has a higher prevalence in this particular population. So substance use, one thing that we must keep in mind is the relationship between substance use and mental illness are bidirectional. So it's not only that the substance use is causing the problem, the substance use can be an effect of the problem. So it can be the cause as well as the effect. And the other thing is that it can act as a predisposition for a mental illness. It can be a precipitant for a mental illness, and it can also be a maintaining factor for a mental illness. So what we see is that another thing that is very that needs a lot of attention in this population is the treatment gap. So what you mean by a treatment gap is the number of people who have the illness, and when you're looking at the number of people who are receiving treatment and the number of people who have the illness, the gap between the two is called the treatment gap. So very shockingly, the treatment gap for adolescents with illness is about 73.6 for severe mental disorders, 85 for common mental disorders, that is your anxiety depressive spectrum, and 91.1 for substance use disorders. So again, to sum it up, why is this, why us, why the youth, and why now? These are the answers to that. One, because of the magnitude of the problem. Two, because of two specific issues, one of suicide and other of substance use with a high prevalence in this population. Three, because of an unattended treatment plan. And four, of course, that there are very, very promising results for people with mental illness at this stage group when given professional help. Sometimes treatment in the sense it can be psychological treatments as well as medication. So even with just reaching out, this population seems to improve drastically. So all these issues, what are the consequences that a person with that befalls a person with a mental illness? Definitely, there will be consequences at the individual level. Right. Can we go to the next slide, please? So it can definitely improve, it can definitely impair your quality of life. So another thing that we need to keep in mind is the especially the common mental illness, that is the anxiety depressive spectrum. I'm aware that this has been explained to you in a previous class, so I'm not going into this at detail. But one thing we need to keep in mind is the minor mental illnesses. They might not have a spectacular presentation. Sometimes even your roommate might not realize, but they can slowly erode the quality of your life and impair your academic achievements and affect your health. So imagine there is a work, there's a record that you need to finish in 2 hours. Imagine finishing it in 6 hours because you have to keep rechecking. Imagine not being able to participate in your favorite sport activity because you're having panic attack. Imagine having multiple breakups because you tend to be um, slightly impulsive or because you tend to be a little suspicious of your partner. So these are all things that can affect your quality of life, your academic achievement, your physical health, and your overall satisfaction with the college experience. So one thing that is again very relevant to youth is the life skills. So college is a time, see, we are all people who've been sitting with books in our 12th standard or in our 10th standard. And depending, many of us would have joined hostel for the first time in after your plus two in your college. So this is the time when you're meeting people from different backgrounds, different contexts. You are engaging in newer activities. Like for instance, do you manage your college mess? Does your student body manage your college mess? So you're involved in a lot of activities, getting stuff. Does it happen in your college? So this is also a place where you have to learn newer life skills. So you pick up newer life skills, you practice them, and kind of learn what can be used in a particular situation and what works best with a person. So those are not psychology; those are just life skills. So this is a time when you learn these life skills. So having an illness can also impair the pickup of these skills, and of course have a negatively impacting relationship with friends and family members. These can even have a long-term consequences on your employment, your placement, your earning potential, and your overall health. So, yeah, so it's not just an individual that is affected by the mental health. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah. So it's not only the individual that is affected because of this mental health issues. Often it translates, often more often than not, it translates into interpersonal realms and institutional levels. And see, if you're looking at any moment in history, any achievements over history, it's always been the youth that is maximum involved in this. All your there are a lot of your freedom struggle heroes who belong to this age group. So, in a society where the youth is so laden down with issues, the society and the community at large will also have consequences. Sorry, am I audible?
Yeah.
So, can we go to the next slide, please? So, something that I've seen when we come across, when we are treating professionals or answering to their queries, is that a lot of them are interested to know about the cause. So, a knowledge about the cause, what makes this difference in you or a family member, often I feel empowers the patient to deal with the illness and for the family to understand. And they're able to somehow deal with the situation much better. So I thought, in a nutshell, I'll try to explain to you some of the common causes that we can understand so that we are able to get a little more in depth understanding about this problem. So the causes can be divided into, just so that you understand, biological causes. So psychological causes and social causes. So in the biological causes, what do you mean by biological? So there is a biological substrate, or there's something going wrong in your body that's causing. For instance, then there is a trajectory of illness. So many of our illnesses are known to occur during adolescence, many severe mental illness, and during adolescence and early adulthood. So that's like a biological predisposition. Then, as we looked at substance use, you might have a genetic vulnerability to substance. The behavioral addictions are all those things that you do on your mobile addictions, shopping addictions, pathological gambling. All those things come under the behavioral addictions. Okay. And the next would be your psychological issue. For instance, you could be a person, see, you wanted to go elsewhere after your entrance, you were not able to go there. This happens even in Harvard. There are people who get admission into Harvard and wanted to go to other medical schools. So it's a universal phenomenon. And many people usually have a poor self-esteem associated with stuff like this. So if they have a poor self-esteem, like I said, you've been sitting with a book always, lack of social skills. And see, how did we learn our chapters in 10th and 12th? How did we learn our entrance textbooks? I'm pretty sure my entrance textbooks, I would have passed my fingers through it at least 3 to 4 times every life prior to my entrance. But are we able to do that during our course? Not really, no? Are you able to even finish reading the main suggested text? No. So people might find it difficult to deal with it. Something like a need for perfection might be impairing your progress. So a lack of flexibility. So these are some of the psychological causes. Can we go to the next slide, please? Social causes. Can we go to the next slide, please? The next part I've divided into social causes. So did you understand? Biological is that there is a biological root for the problem. Psychological is that you're saying it's some of the things that you think of, how your mind is tuned to think. So that becomes some of the psychological causes. Then we're looking at the social causes. For a country like India, I mean, a lot of us have to deal with being given a predetermined career path. We do not start earning at 18. We're still dependent on our parents. And yeah, we at 20, we want to make all the decisions that is facing us. Then there is a change in the family structure. For instance, if you're talking to your dad or your uncle or your mom, they would have been living in a sort of connected family or a joint family. So you had an elder first cousin who went for a job or who went to the university. So, but now, right now, we are limited to a nuclear family with 4 people and a lot of expectations being placed on the children. And the children actually do not have anyone to look up to or share their experience with. So, that is the changing family structure, which has actually resulted in a lack of support. Then, some of the other things which I was able to gather when I spoke to a few students in engineering colleges, one and professionals. One is the stress related to campus placements. Then the need. So we also have the small population of people, especially in the IT sector. So these are people who have specialized in a different branch of engineering, but had to shift their branch, stream of choice. So actually, we come across professionals when they come to seek help, when they have difficulty in adjusting with the job. Many of them cite this as a problem. The next thing so these are the things that I found specifically catering to your population. Please add on or correct me if I'm wrong. So the other thing is that so many people say that they actually have to spend a lot of time over the computer on and in a virtual world. So you're actually interacting a lot with the. So if you're talking about a 9 to 7 job, so much time you're spending with the computer, which is we there are multiple professionals who spend time. We also have to spend time during your uh, post graduation, etc. But the thing is, sometimes we are not just wired to be island. Sometimes there's this lack of interaction with other people that bothers people. So that could be a stressor, the work hours. And many of us, when you move on from the comfort of the hostel to the corporate world, find it difficult to adjust. So these are some of the social causes which can precipitate an illness. So having divided the causes into biological, psychological, and social, one thing I want to say is that all these causes are interlinked. It's not like you have an illness because you have a predisposition. It's not like you have a mental illness because you have a hypothyroidism. All these factors interact with each other, and then you get a resultant problem as a byproduct. And the other thing which I have mentioned in the previous slides also is the role of age. So, for instance, the age plays a major role when you're looking at your biological process. I'm just trying to explain it in a way that you will understand. For instance, the way our brain works. It's like there are some parts of our brain which are involved in making decisions, some parts that are involved in, stopping impulsivity. But so how the adolescent and young brain works is your brain have not fully developed and your accelerator is too low. That's biological. But it will give you traits like impulsivity, wanting to do new things. So that is psychological. And it can even cause problems in your social life, in your company. People find you too impulsive, people find you less patient. Right. So this is how these factors interact. For instance, if you're looking at a problem of alcohol use, a person who has a genetic vulnerability for it, has a family member who drinks, is seeing grown up seeing a person drink, that's your biological vulnerability. Psychologically, you might be using a person with poor social skills. You might be using the alcohol to get over that. You feel you become more confident. You're able to make more friends when you are a little less inhibited by alcohol. That's how psychologically it affects. And socially also, the same can happen. So, what I want you to understand is all these things can add together and or compound the problem. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, these are the common presentations of these mental illnesses. I think this has been taken at length for you in the first session and the subsequent session. So maybe this is something we can show. I mean, we needn't talk about too much. So these are some of the presentations of an underlying illness. You can have an anxiety depressive uh, presentation. It can be present as a substance use. For instance, you have a friend who uses alcohol regularly, but suddenly there is a change in the pattern of alcohol use. That again can be an indication of an ongoing mental health issue. He starts binging all of a sudden. So this person used to drink, but now he starts binging. Then voicing suicidal ideation, going more for gambling, all those behavioral addictions, sometimes even presenting with psychosis. That is living in a different reality, hearing voices, being afraid. It can even present as physical tiredness, which does not have an answer. Like they're not able to work because they're tired. Sexual dysfunction, and even a sleep disturbance in your roommate, if it is persisting, distressing, and causing dysfunction, might be a strong indicator of the fact that he or she needs help. Shall we go to the next slide? So now we know all this, right? So we should be able to solve our problems, isn't it? We will not be facing any problems. Is that so? So if you're looking, live a little every day. Ek hi zindagi mili. So what is this? This is an inspirational quote. Very sadly, these were the last two words found on an 8-page long note, suicide note written by a deceased postgraduate student at IITH. Suicide is not the solution. A famous dialogue from the movie Chore, in which the lead character is again suspected to have committed suicide. Despite the knowledge, the unwanted event happens. Why is that? So, an understanding of that might actually help us to deal with it a little better. Why? Despite the knowledge, why does the evil? So there are some things called that stands in between the need that you have. You feel you have a need, you feel you're distressed, you have a mental illness, and seeking help or continuing your. Some of that can be a low perceived need. Like you have the illness. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So this is what we call barriers in between need and help. The one can be a low perceived need. You feel the problem went away by itself. I did not really need help, or I don't need help anymore. That's called your low perceived. Then it can be structural barriers. Come on, you're all students, you have deadlines to meet, uh, economic issues, uh, attendance that is compulsory. You're not able to go and meet the practice. The other one is attitudinal barriers. So, things like, if you stop complaining, you'll feel better. I have a problem, but I want to handle it myself. I'm not satisfied with the available help means taking away my autonomy. So these are all some of the attitudinal barriers. So if you have a mental health problem and you've not, or forget it, you don't have to call it a mental health problem. You're struggling with a problem and you've not sought help. See if you're stuck within you. If so, let's act. When someone's coming to you for help, see where they're stuck and let's help them. This gives us a little more, it gives us a systematic way in which we can do that. Next slide, please. So now let us look at some strategies that can help us deal with this because we are aware that we are aware about the magnitude of the problem now. We are aware how the problems taken a toll on our friends, on our other people that we know. We know the magnitude. We know that there is an unmet need. We know how the problem presents and affects us. We know what stands in between us and them. So now let's look at some strategies to deal with it. These are not professional strategies because there was a request from your side to look at some strategies that give you an idea about how to deal with it. Look at things that are, more things that you can do firstly. Okay. The first thing is call for, call for help. Seek help. Nobody is going to think you're weak because you've called, ask for help. In any progressive society, seeking help is seen as a sign of intelligence. When you're struggling with something, go for it. Get help. Second is awareness of mental health issues. We look at that in detail. Then, specific lifestyle modification. So, when I suggest lifestyle modification for our clients, what we have to so generally, what is it that you're looking for in a lifestyle? You're looking for a balanced diet. You're looking for a balanced diet and you're looking for a balanced exercise, recreational activities, etc. Right? So when you're looking at how to change your lifestyle, you have to look at specific problems that you are having. For instance, if you're looking at IT professions, many of them have like come with a cervical pain because of staring into the computer for too long. So that's like a physical problem that you have. Then, like I said, many of them do not actually have an interaction with others. That is again specific to their work. So all those things you have to compensate in your lifestyle modification. So, for instance, your recreational activity can include things like where you interact with fellow human beings. So that's how you make specific changes to your lifestyle. Like, look at what you're missing out. Look at what's causing a strain on. You're a person who loves football. You don't have a went out like that. It's a very aggressive sport, right? So there are many people who cope with sports like that. So if that is what you're missing in your life, that probably you need a punch bag, or probably you need a way where you can meet up as a group, play a game. So that's how you try to make specific lifestyle modifications. Look at the ideal lifestyle strategies that you need, like diet, meditation, exercise, and look at what exactly you think is hurting and try to make changes. The other thing is identifying support systems. Believe me, they come a long way. So having friends, uh, being able to depend on your family members, having that one friend whom you haven't spoken for a long time, but if there is a crisis, you can always call back. So try to identify your support system and your coping strategy. So coping strategies are very individualistic. For some people, it can be something like just being alone and praying. Some it can be travel. For some, it can be helping out others. So See, when you're well or when you're doing something, this is some things that we can try to identify about us. Who is this one person you'd like to go to in your family? Who's this two people whom you will call at the need of when you have a need? What is the thing that you usually do when you're very upset? What did you do when you recovered from your last breakup? Maybe the same thing will work again when you face it. Next thing is how to. Can we go to the next slide, please? How we can make certain changes to the way we think. For instance, when at one point you're very particular about perfection. That project you did in your 12th standard, you did it again and again and again with your lab team because it had to be the best. But maybe when you're in a professional course, you have to choose progress. Not focus too much on that perfection. It it is more about doing it better than last time. And make sure you're moving. Little by little, but just make sure you're moving. Decatastrophization. When faced, you flung the food. Happens to long you flung the paper. Let's see what we can do about it. Flung the stem. We'll see what we can do about it. And also a plan. See, when you're moving, suppose we are doing this meeting, I'm sure you would have had a plan to deal with a failure. Like we're not able to get the things connected, booted, the audio is not working, video is not working. We tried different strategies while we were doing this. We should have strategies, we should have backup plans. And suppose the plans fail. One option when you embark on anything, one option is success, the other option is failure if you're looking at it that. But if you're looking at it differently, one option is progress. This much I've done. All right, right, fine. Also, have a plan to deal with the failure. And when faced with a situation, see, it happens to all of us. When you're faced with a very overwhelming situation, that seems like what the world is about. I'll ask you an example. When we were in 10th standard, weren't you always thinking about when the board exam marks were coming? And wouldn't you be pleasantly surprised when other people were not aware about it? 10th marks came, and your neighbor would be like, okay. So there's been a time they are not actually worried about it. Similarly, are we looking at 10th standard marks now? Any of you remember when the results came this year? No. So, this problem that we are facing is a part of the whole. This is not the end of the world. Can any of you remember what was bothering your mind when you were in 8th standard? Not really. Some things will be there. Like I still remember I wasn't able to make it to a dance team. I still feel a little upset about that. But it's not most of the things you don't remember. And whatever you remember, that's also not the end of the world. These are some things that we have to teach our mind to think differently. Next is when someone comes to you with a problem or when you are having a problem. What you do is, these are some techniques trying to break down the problem. So someone's coming to you, I'm not able to, complete my project or my thesis. How will you help them? You have to submit a thesis at the end of your college, sometime in your college year. Okay, so how will you look at it? What is the part that he's not able to? Is it the IRB? Is it the RO review of literature? Is it the making it as such? Is it entering the data? So, so you see which step that person is getting stuck in. That's and the other thing that you can do is looking at it as things that are modifiable and non-modifiable. So, for instance, for me, if I'm getting patients from a pediatric OP, some child group, some age group, that patient has to come. That's not in my hand. What's in my hand is modified, and that's what I need to work on. And remember, there is no mantra to fit all situations, all individuals. Can we go to the next slide, please? Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So another thing that you're doing is, like, right now you're at a field, you're learning, I mean, you're doing your basic course. You're not yet specialized. And you're actually given a lot of opportunities. This is a time for you to actually look at identifying your passions. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that gives you joy at the end of the day? Make sure you're able to capitalize on that. This is the age for it. Try and understand what is it that keeps you going. The other thing is looking out for others. Then another thing that Phil Vijay was telling me is about a number of classmates that you have lost. So all of us have a role as gatekeepers. So what you call as gatekeepers in suicide. So that can be your colleague. You can work as the gatekeeper. Can be a mental health professional. So when you look out for others, when you reach out to others, when you try to channelize them, it actually be a gate. The thing is, and the other thing is, never ever normalize anyone. If you want to normalize anything, if at all you want to normalize anything, normalize that the person needs help. Because look at the Ortec Institute. So 10 years back, when I did my course, it wasn't so hard. So if at all anything is normal, it's normal to need help. It's normal to have a chat. If at all you're normalizing anything, do normalize that. Do not normalize anyone. This. Another thing that I'm actually looking back at my 12th standard batch, we've had a lot of people who went into engineering. And I'm actually amazed at how much they've utilized platforms, made platforms where people can meet, where people can reach out. They've actually used a lot of their skills. I mean, people who go into engineering have always felt are very skilled in that way, and very technology, excellent in technology. So utilizing these things for spreading of awareness, extending help, and establishment. So believe me, we have had so many 12th standard reunions. We've not had an MBBS reunion as yet. Because there were people who were actually taken the pain to organize it over Google Forums. So we actually have are planning on a MBBS reunion, looking at how our colleagues in the engineering department have gone about organizing the 12th standard reunion. The Google Forms, how you meet on a platform. So these are all things that you can do. And first and foremost, and last and not the least, do seek help. Again, that is the one thing I want to say. Can we go to the next slide? So so in the previous slides, we looked at awareness, right? So what is awareness? I told it to you as a word, awareness. What is it that you mean by awareness? Can you just press on the screen once again? There's another column. Yeah, so it can be awareness of symptoms, recognizing the problem. Once again, identifying the causes and barriers, and self-help and facilitation of professional help. So what I was trying to give in this talk is also looking at what are the things that you gained in the last three sessions. So you've become acquainted with the symptoms. You have a fair idea of how to recognize issues. So we're focused on causes and barriers and self-help. And definitely professional help is available. Please ask for it. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is these are some of the things that I've heard from professionals, including medical professionals. These are some things that are actual myths. So when you're stressed, it means weak. You're in a cadre where you find it difficult to cope with something. If you tell a person, do they judge you for being weak? That is just a reflection of who they are. That's not true. Medicines are bad. No, everything that is useful for you, including water intake in excess, has its own side. Anything that has the potential to has minimal side effects. But all medications, we match it with the patient profile and give. And there are very, very, very safe medicines available. Medicines that can be given during pregnancy and breastfeeding also. And there are some people who believe that once you start medications, they're for a lifetime. Again, myth. Marriage is a cure. Myth. Depression goes away if you stop complaining. Killer myth. Suicide is not preventable. Big myth. Your problems are silly. That person is silly. People who talk about suicide don't fall for that. Most of the people who commit suicide have voiced it to some person prior to this. So these are some myths which I want you to be aware of. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what did I mean by looking out? So I told you, no, you have to look out. That's how we become gatekeepers. What do you have to look out? The symptoms we have dealt with earlier, right? We looked at the symptoms. There was a previous slide. So any of those symptoms, specific presentations discussed prior. And sleep loss, I told you, distressing, dysfunctioning sleep loss. Change in pattern of substance use, increased cigarette smoking, like a lot of people do it prior to exams, but just keep a watch out. Accentuation of personality traits. That is, yeah, you have a person who's emotional, but it's just gotten worse. Or uncharacteristic behavior. You have a person who's very rational about spending money. It's just started ordering things over and over in Amazon, voicing suicidal ideation, seeking help. That person who comes to you seeking help without saying it. I'm sure all of us have met such a person at least once in our 5 years of college or 4.5 years of college. Absenteeism from college. When people start speaking of a foreshortened future, why would you speak of a foreshortened future? You're 10 years younger than me. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable as in not in a social sense of the word. Not that is something we need to look out. This is a slide. Can we go to the next slide, please? So again, I'm repeating, ask for help. Okay. Now, this is something else that we want to know about. When I've asked this question prior to groups of students, there's one question that has come up repeatedly. That is, what are the things that you should do to be happy? Actually, a mental health professional is not a great expert at this, uh, but because I've heard this question repeated, I'm prepared for an answer today. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is just part of the answer. Okay, this is very interesting study, 8-year-old study done in Harvard on a cohort of men who graduated from there. So I think Kennedy was also one recruit. So they followed them up over the years. And now retrospectively, some of the things that they found interesting and applicable was one, enriching relations with family, friends, and community. So don't let go of that relationship, when trying to attain something else. Second, they understood actually these are replicated in this cohort study. Can you believe it? This looks like words from a bedtime story, but actually the study has replicated it. You should look at Harvard study on development or Harvard study on happiness. The next one is good relationships can benefit physical health also. So another thing that is coming up now more and more is the biopsychosocial spiritual model. So when we are looking at problems, the solution, the causes we looked at it biologically. So the solution also has implications on all these directions. Medications, changing your psychological mindset. improving your social connections, increasing the frequency of your social outings, looking at how rewarding each outing has been. And the other dimension that is coming up to this model is the spiritual dimension, with many people benefiting from. So, uh, so can we have the next slide, please? Again, I've just given a list of some suicidal helplines, uh, and the take-home message I would like you to. So can one of you tell me what is the take-home message that you understood after this talk?
I guess fundamentally it would be that the importance of seeking help, and that telling yourself, as in putting yourself in a position of vulnerability, you're telling someone that I need help is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be, it's a sign of strength that you're opening up to someone and
Yes,
telling them that I need help. So I guess
really.
that would be it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the take-home message I intend. The other would be, of course, to keep your ears, eyes open. We're going through a tough time, and let's reach out, seek help, reach out, be aware. With awareness, we're not really talking about understanding the problem. We've looked at various realms of awareness. So I want you to apply that when you come across a person, when you are in trouble, or a family member, or a friend. Seek help. I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any questions you guys have can be addressed privately to either me or Abdullah. So we'll move ahead with the Q&A session. One question that was asked, due to recent atrocities happening in our country, being the youth of this nation, it is such a disheartening sight to watch these. It affects my mental health on a level that I feel helpless, and I feel that nothing can be done to instill and help others. How do I cope with this feeling of helplessness?
Okay. So I will not be. So there is a way in which we need to look at it. So I'll try to use the structure we used in the previous slide. Can we go to that slide number, uh, the one that has no, the previous, previous slide. Huh. Okay. So next one. So in next slide. So now what you're saying is an atrocity that is happening in the state. I'm not sure what my dear friend had in mind. But one way to look at this is breaking down the problem. What is it that is affecting? So it's also a journey into yourself when you look at it. What is it that is affecting you about the social situation? That can even tell you something about yourself. Why is it hurting you? That is something, okay, that goes with the package, but that's not how we entirely deal with it. So look at what exactly is hurting. Then you try to break down the problem. Is it like a political problem that you're distressed with? Is it a social problem that you're distressed with? Then let's divide it into modifiable factors and non modifiable factors. Let's also make a diary or an entry where we look at and we try to divide it into short term solutions, intermediate. What is it that you can do while you're studying a CET regarding this problem? When you're a student, when you have, say, a campus of how many people are there in your campus?
I'm guessing around 3,000, 4,000. I guess.
You have around 3,000 people in your campus. So you've started this initiative, Embrace, right? So what will
Yes.
be your overall attendance for all the classes?
Somewhere near 600, I guess, all
Okay,
around. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. So you're able to at least tap so much potential when you're in a college. So that is, of course, one of your to do things immediate. Then your intermediate would be, when you have a profession, when there is, or when, or how you're planning out your life. What is it that you'll be able to offer to it at the next stage in your life? And long term, what is it? And when you're looking at another slide, the next slide, what we looked at is identifying passions.
Hmm.
So, what is it that you're passionate about? Are you a person who can get more people involved into this movement by writing? Are you a
Hmm.
singer? So, what is it that is within you that you can use for this problem? Why is it hurting you? What is it within you that you can use for this problem to get? And how do you plan to go about it? Okay, sometimes there are people who write articles on blogs. They're also able to help out. You don't, if you're a person who's not able to go into the war front, you still can make a difference with your pen. Or you might not be able to do it now. That's paying for your fees. You really don't have a choice to go into it now. If that's what your scenario is, I'm not saying that's how it should be, then see what you can do now. And when you have independence, or when you're independent about your decision, do the thing that you want to. So again, we covered identifying passions and look out for others. So see, there's a social custom that you don't that is hurting you. For instance, how
Hmm.
women do not have a decision over their marital age.
Hmm.
Look out for others. Look at your classmates. Is there a person who's struggling with that problem? Maybe you're not able to deal with it at the level of a mass intervention. Maybe there's this person who's hurting right next to you, for whom you might be able to be of support. Given any social problems in a class of 100, there might be people who are distressed about it. So see at this stage, what is it that you can do? And of course, move on with that. If you continue to be passionate about it, please continue to do it. You can again utilization of platforms, use the technology for spreading awareness. So what I'm saying is I'm not asking you to follow this format, but let's not, stand at a blind end saying there's this problem, it's hurting me. Let's look farther, deeper, and around it and see what we can do for it. Does that answer your question, at least a part of it?
Well, I hope it did, to whoever asked the question. Thank you, ma'am. And another question that was asked was, uh, when I feel sad, or when I'm depressed, I don't want to not be depressed. As in, I don't want to listen to happy songs. I want to listen to sad songs. Like, I want to remain in that state where I don't want to, feel anything else. Like, how do I deal with this?
The question is, why do you want to deal with it? Because if you're saying you would rather listen to sad songs, there's no problem. I mean, you can actually spoil yourself for some time as long as it's not causing a disruption in your schedule, as long as it's not causing overt distress
Mm.
and a dysfunction in your chosen line. It's fine to be sad. The mantra is not to be happy always. We all feel sad, and that is normal. And if you want to feel sad for something, I mean, great people have known a lot about each other, discovered new depth of themselves, made discoveries, made new mantras when they were sad. That's fine. But seek help if it's getting the better of you, if it's disrupting your sleep, if it is disrupting your schedule, if it's causing impairment in your interpersonal function or dysfunction in any of your realms, be it interpersonal, social, or regarding your health. Otherwise, it's okay. Our sweetest songs are those that tell us of the saddest songs. Some of the hits, all-time hits, have been sad songs. That's fine.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question. A good friend told me they're going through a tough time in his home. I try to talk to them every day, but they are clingy and take a lot of my time. I feel like I'm unable to do a lot of things on my daily checkout because of this. How can I help myself while also making sure I help him through this?
See, when you look at giving help, it can be at multiple levels. It can be at the level of self-help. It can be at the level of giving a societal support. It can be also at the level of professional. The fact that you are feeling so sad or you're feeling like so tired at the end of it, could be because you're actually going in circles, or you are bearing the brunt of it. It often happens when with the family, it happens to us also, professionally also, when you're trying to help out. There are times when you go in circles. That is like an energy drain. And that's like an indicator that maybe they do need a professional. So then you escalate or you facilitate professional help. Or you can actually use the structure that, the module that we looked into to break the problems, everything. But this thing that you're saying, I am feeling so drained of my energy. A person with such good intentions who's been spending so much time is feeling burnt out at the end of it. Number one, I mean, it is definitely a strong indicator that maybe a professional should be involved.
Okay, ma'am, I
Thank you,
got a
ma'am.
question.
Hi, Abdul. Tell me.
How to reduce screen time?
How to reduce screen time? So, just a query. Screen time meaning, is it part of watching movies or YouTube or what?
Maybe social media usage. He didn't specify, ma'am.
Okay, sure. So, one thing I understand is that uh, you want to reduce your screen time and you're seeking help for it. So, that is an indicator that there is uh, probably something that is impairing you with the screen time. Maybe it is impairing your interpersonal relationships. Maybe you're spending more time on the computer than with your friends. Maybe more time on the computer than with your books. So I mean, I understand that you're seeing uh, an impairment somewhere. You feel you're better off with it, without it, right? Or you feel you're too dependent on it. So that I would say is a start. So, for instance, if Abdul was asking me, my roommate is spending too much time on the screen, how can I help him? That would have been a very, very difficult question. Since you are asking, how can I decrease my screen time? I think we've already reached step one. The next step would be something we call cognitive dissonance. So, we need to look at what we want and how the screen time is impairing us from getting there. Right. And so with that awareness, we should plan strategy. So that unless, see, if I am giving you a ready-made strategy saying do this, then you yourself might not be so much into it. It's very important for you. Sorry, cognitive means something that's happening in your mind. So in your mind, you realize that you're this person who wants to achieve this one goal. But the screen time is preventing you from going there. So mentally, you remain a little separated from it, or do you realize that it's doing a harm? So that is step number two. The third step would be, looking at how to stop it or how to limit it. What are the things that you can do to deal with it? So if you're looking at it as an addiction, there are multiple strategies that you should do, like revert to more interesting things or keep a specific amount of time for it. See how else you can. What is it that you're getting out of it that you can get to other ways? For instance, are you just killing time, or does it give you a high? What are other acceptable activities that will give you that high or will give you that joy? Maybe when you feel the urge to do it, maybe plan on an outing with you. So those things we can plan out in detail. But the one requisite is that you are motivated to quit, you are motivated to stop, and so you understand in your mind, or you make a table in your mind saying, how is it making me to stay away from the things that I want in life? Those are the two prerequisites I would want you to have. The next, breaking the activities, looking for pleasurable alternatives, keeping a strict timetable are all other things that we can try.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh,
Another question that was asked was,
it's been someone has sent me message saying it's been
okay.
2 years, but it still continues. So maybe we should look at the things what are the states. So we have to look at it at a little more depth. One thing I would say is make an entry of the same. Look at the times when you failed. Why is it that you've gone backward? That would give you an idea of your emotional state. Maybe we should talk at it with a little more depth rather than, over the through another person. Would you like to get some help with maybe you need specific strategies and not just general instructions. If so, we should think about
Thank you, ma'am. Another question that was asked was, does the psychiatry department at CMC Vellore do online consultation?
Yeah, right now we were actually not having, but after the corona, we have quite a high number of corona cases in Vellore. So now we have telepsychiatry option is available. We do.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. So for the ones
I
listening,
will. I
yeah.
can share the link with one of
Yeah,
you.
please, ma'am. Please do. Please
I'll
do.
just do that.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. And another question. We've almost come to the end. It's been an hour, and I guess it's the last question. The question was, how do we prevent these small stresses in my life, ultimately cumulatively adding up and turning out into this big problem that affects me mentally?
Okay. So again, I think for this we can again go back to our slide, breaking down the problem. So this big problem we have to break down. And ultimately, that will give you an idea about what is it that we need to work. So if you're saying, for instance, I'm just thinking of an example because I'm not sure what exactly you had in mind. If you are talking about a specific problem, as in maybe for rejection as you had multiple rejections at an interpersonal level, is that if that is what you have in mind, let's look back at the problem and see that it doesn't grow on us. So there's something called dealing with it. That's what we were saying in the presentation also. If there is a failure, have a strategy, deal with it. When you start out on something, it can be success, it can be progress. So you needn't see it as a failure. But if it is like a non-negotiable failure that you've had, have a backup plan and see that you dealt with. That needn't exactly be at the level of getting a professional help. It can be through your friend. For instance, I have this friend of mine who is living in another continent, but there are there are these minor things that happen at work sometimes, these everyday things, mundane things. So we've kept a date. She calls me every Saturday, so we deal with these small things, small disappointments, and see that it doesn't make us bitter, and that we are actually over it, and that it doesn't hurt you so much after the weekend. That that is just an everyday thing that you do, that you can do. The other thing would be improving on your life. So there's been one problem that has affected you today. You should not let there's something that you learn from it. There's something by dealing with the same problem of the same magnitude should not affect you with the same severity the next. This person's being mean to you. Okay, so that's the jerk he is. I mean, at least over multiple instances, this should not hurt you at the same level it has before. So that is something that we look at it when you look at that. So, and the other thing is the watchword is how to build on our resilience. So some of these small problems, these small troubles that we face in life can actually make us, have better coping strategies, can make you deal with it better. So you've seen a person who's coming out from the corporate world, after 7 years of service, the things that started, the problems he had when he started working with might not affect him to the same degree later. So these problems in some ways can be welcome because it improves on your coping strategy. You have to work on your coping strategy. And also look for if you're having any skill deficit. For instance, you're having a problem because someone's asking you for money and you're not able to say no. probably you're lacking assertiveness. So you try to identify that particular, or you get help to identify that particular skill deficit that you're having that is, maintaining the problem. If the same problem is still taking a toll on you, then see whether there is any deficit that's maintaining, whether there is any predisposing factor to it. And then we start working on that. I am not sure whether I've actually addressed your question. And the third option would be looking for social support. Identifying the deficits, working on the coping strategies, getting help. It can be self-help, it can be from a source support, it can be professional.
Yeah, ma'am, I got a question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't feel motivated at all, and I feel down seeing others doing so much. I needed validation, but I don't seem to find enough energy to do anything. How can I wake up every morning feeling all in power and be able to do the things I always wanted to do?
So I would need some details of what are the problems. I mean, how is it that you feel when such a question is asked? If you're feeling, uh, can you just repeat the question once again? Like I'm just trying to see the words the person used. Can you just repeat the question once again?
I'll forward the question to you, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to get a detail probably that's missed out in the question. So this is person who's not feeling motivated. So see, these are the kind of problems that we need to look at that. What is there are multiple reasons. There can be multiple reasons, including a, a mental health challenge. It might just be a poor adjustment at this place. It might just be something that's keeping you down. It can even be a mental health issue. It can be anything in the spectrum. So these are the sort of things that you need to look at in depth. So why are you feeling motivated? Are you feeling physically tired? Do you feel that the way you're working, your brain is not processing well? Is your sleep impaired? Is there something? Are you subjected to any bullying? So it's a lot of it depends on the cost for this, or is it just the nature that you have when you don't feel motivated, or is it a phase that you're going? All these things would, the solution that we're looking for will depend upon all these things. Feeling motivated can be with the tip of an iceberg. This is something that we need to look into depth.
Yes, ma'am.
It might just, the tiredness is the presentation of something underlying. What it is something that we need to know. We need to actually explore and find out.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I believe we've come to a conclusion because it's been more than an hour right now. Ma'am, do you have any words in conclusion to address to us at 25 CET and everyone listening?
First of all, I think it's a great initiative. Be very
Thank you so
proud of
much.
yourself that at this stage you've thought so much. You've actually trying to organize something to reach out to people who are going through a trouble. So that is, so I feel there is a lot of potential within you in your campus which can help with problem solving. So you have the potential within you. Utilize the potential. Reach out to others. Ask for help when you need.
Thank
We
you,
are
ma'am.
here. We are one big community. We're all here.
Yes,
Okay, ma'am.
definitely.
I got one final question. How to deal with dermatillomania?
Are you talking about? Okay, so I think trichotillomania is something that the person would have meant. That is pulling out the hair.
It's dermatillomania.
Yeah, I think the person is asked
Dermakin.
dermatillomania. Yes. Maybe it was a error.
Yeah, ma'am. He sent a message. Skin picking condition.
Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
We can't hear you.
Ma'am, audio not. Ma'am, we can hear it.
We can't hear you. Could you take your earphones out? Maybe that'll help. Could you try that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now we
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this person who's asked about trichotillomania or
No, ma'am.
skin excoriation syndrome. Picking up
Skin picking
skin.
condition.
Yeah.
Skin picking. That's called the skin excoriation syndrome. So first of all, we need to know if you're having the full syndrome. So there can be people who are habitual skin.
Ma'am, you've muted yourself.
Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
So there can be people who are skin pickers. It happens to you very infrequently. You tend to do it without your knowledge, but it is very infrequent. There can be people amongst us who's actually having this impulse control disorder called skin excoriation syndrome. So depending upon where you lie between the two, we will decide on how to manage it. So there can be medications that are available definitely if present in the syndrome or even at a minor level. This is a very distressing condition. And one thing I can assure you, there are biological treatment, by which I mean medications, and there are psychological treatment that has proved to be useful for many people with the same problem. So be rest assured that this is a problem if presenting as if you're actually having skin excoriation syndrome, we can definitely help you deal with it. There is a treatment protocol for this, including medication, psychological interventions like habit reversal, and also looking at what precipitates that and trying to reverse it. So you will get help. Don't worry.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe we will conclude now. In conclusion, I would like to thank wholeheartedly Dr. Aiswarya Nair for spending so much time with us, and the amount of knowledge and clarity you have in whatever you're speaking is so evident that we are all assured, to be honest, on a very, very, very personal level that we have help out there. And fundamentally, what you want to say through the session was that help was never far away, and that asking for it was never something to be ashamed of. And knowing that there are people out there like you who are willing to take the time and effort to spare some time in your day to help children like us and growing people of the nation, like you said, to understand ourselves better in a way and reaching out and everything. Thank you so much, ma'am, on behalf of Under 25 CET and everyone listening. Thank you so much for being with us and clearing our doubts and explaining everything to us so
Thank
detailed.
you. Thank you so much. If even one person feel help with it, I'm very glad. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
We definitely did, ma'am. Thank you so much. Ma'am, can you please stay back for a while? The members of Under 25 CET and Dr. Aiswarya Nair will be staying back. Can the others please leave the session? Thank you so much. We have come to the conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for help with the technical issues. I was actually a little lost in the beginning.
Oh, that's fine, ma'am. It's the first time it happened, so it was sort of new for us too. So that's totally fine. We deal with it. Yeah. Can the members of Under 25 CET please stay back and turn on their videos if they can? Technical head, can you please switch off the live stream, and the others can please